Bears on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the like.
There is a big rumor going around that the Chicago Bears might make a stunning roster move. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. First and foremost, Bears fans, happy Monday to every single one of you guys. I hope you guys had an outstanding weekend. As we all know, Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears are currently working hard to set their 53-man roster before tomorrow's Tuesday deadline, where by 4 p.m. Eastern time, they have to have their roster locked in, and the Bears have already made their second wave of cuts on Monday that included cutting running back Ian Wheeler. Hopefully the Chicago Bears can get him back on the practice squad. I feel like once again he had an outstanding preseason, a guy that I would love to see continue to develop on the Chicago Bears roster. But Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears are still working through creating their final 53 before Tuesday's deadline. And according to Dan Wiederer of the Chicago Tribune, starting nose tackle from the past two seasons in Andrew Billings is also not a lock to make the 53-man roster. This is what he had to say, Bears fans. The Bears are continuing through their roster cuts today ahead of Tuesday's deadline. Biggest questions from me revolve around the offensive line depth preferences and the backfield depth and wide receiver 6 and Big Bill. Bears fans, from the initial sounds of it, once again, it sounds like Andrew Billings is not a lock to make the 53-man roster. When you look at Andrew Billings now, he is now 30 years old and is coming off a torn pectoral last season, and was expected to, in my personal opinion, was still expected to be a big part of this defensive front here in Chicago. And to me, cutting Andrew Billings would be a huge shock to me. I'm especially considering that he is one of the better run defenders that we have on this defensive line, especially when healthy. I felt that when he went down for the season last year for the Chicago Bears defensive line, his presence was definitely missed. The Chicago Bears have struggled, in the last couple of years, stopping the run. They were 28th in run defense last season. And of course, in the first couple of games in preseason this year, they are still showed some struggles. Rather it's preseason or not, you still see the struggles against the run. And Andrew Billings is a big presence within the middle of that Chicago Bears defense. With that being said, Bears fans, the roster has changed. Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, and Dennis Allen have brought in a whole lot of competition, especially when you're looking at the defensive tackle position on the Chicago Bears roster. Of course, you have Gervon Dexter, and Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen are expecting a big jump from him. Of course, you signed Grady Jarrett as a high-end free agent to really bolster this defensive line. And then, of course, you drafted Shamar Turner as well in round 2 in the 2025 NFL draft. With that being said, if Shamar Turner is going to be listed as a defensive tackle, that means the 4th and final defensive tackle spot on this Bears roster. Billings will be fighting for that final spot between Zach Pickens and Chris Williams. And I know by the sounds of it, Andrew Billings should be able to clear those guys, but Chris Williams and Zach Pickens are cheaper options, and they definitely have more of a pass rush upside than a guy like Andrew Billings. In my personal opinion, I still think that Andrew Billings should be the 4th and final defensive tackle on this roster. I feel that having him as a backup, especially in certain situations where we have to stop the run, I still think he is one of the better run stuffers on this defensive line. But maybe Dennis Allen values him differently than the past staff here in Chicago. When you look at the snaps that Andrew Billings was playing, he played 41 total snaps in the preseason compared to Gervon Dexter's 21 snaps. So that means Dennis Allen was trying to get a good look on what he truly has with Andrew Billings. I know the age could be a concern. Maybe they're not sure how he's going to return from that torn pectoral. But to me, I still think he brings a veteran presence. And once again, I still think they were going to need his run stuffing abilities on this defensive line. But I guess we'll find out tomorrow prior to the 4 p.m. Eastern deadline when Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears have to have their 53-man roster set. So Bears fans, let me know down below in the comment section. Do you think that Andrew Billings should make the 53-man roster, or do you think they should give it to Zach Pickens or Chris Williams? Let me know down below in the comment section. Also, Bears fans, before I let you guys go, on today's episode of Keek on the Mic, there was kind of a shock in the National Football League world as the Detroit Lions that decided to cut Dan Skipper, the 30-year-old offensive tackle, and he definitely was a fan favorite over there in Detroit. And there's a lot of people scratching their heads right now, but there's also a lot of Bears fans saying that this could be a big opportunity to once again continue to bolster this offensive line that we have here in Chicago. Not only would he add a solid veteran presence and maybe a depth option, maybe he can even push to compete with Braxton Jones as a starting left tackle here on this offensive line. We all understand that Dan Skipper has that familiarity and relationship with Ben Johnson, so it would be a seamless transition, a seamless fit here in Chicago. You look at a guy like Dan Skipper, just an outstanding football player, really athletic. He's 6'9", and obviously Ben Johnson had a play last year against the Buffalo Bills where he had Dan Skipper run a route and actually scored the touchdown on that play. So to me, it makes all the sense in the world that if he is just floating out there, that Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears should be interested. And I know that Ben Johnson is probably already in Ryan Poles' ears right now saying, hey, just go out there and get Dan Skipper. Let's bring in extra competition. Maybe he can compete with Braxton Jones. Even though he has not been here through the duration of Chicago Bears training camp, he still understands what Ben Johnson is trying to do in terms of what he expects from this offensive line. So to me, it seems like a no-brainer move for the Chicago Bears to add a player like Dan Skipper. So let me know down below in the comment section if you would like to see Ryan Poles and the Bears add offensive tackle Dan Skipper to this 53-man roster. But other than that, Bears fans, make sure you guys continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Keek on the Mic with every single Bears that you know. But other than that, be back for all new Bears podcasts right here on Keek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the mic.